Describe for us the picture you see in the weeks ahead, given the news out of Saudi Aramco and sort of the bludgeoning we took last week.
I mean, I think crude is going to continue to struggle. I mean, the fears of the trade war, the fears of demand destruction, I mean, it's just weighing on crude prices. I think the key thing to watch for investors is what happens the week of September 9th. That is when you have the World Energy Congress meeting in Abu Dhabi and the OPEC Joint Ministerial Monitoring Committee meeting. That's when we could get signals about what could Saudi Arabia, what could OPEC do in the face of these real demand concerns. Saudi Arabia came out last week and announced that their production for September was going to be 700,000 barrels a day lower than August levels. The question is, will they do more? And you tie in the whole issue of Aramco. We have these reports now that the Saudi leadership is looking once again to do an IPO of Aramco in either late 2020 or early 2021. They are going to need prices higher in order to pull that off. So I think a lot of pressure is going to be on Saudi Arabia in terms of how they respond to the softening demand picture.
There's a long way to go till 2020 or 2021, Helima.
Yeah.
But at the same time, can we sort of read into this and say, you know, maybe Saudi Aramco wants to try and get this out the door as soon as possible before things get even worse?
I mean, I got that sense at the OPEC meeting that just took place, in June, that they were moving to try to speed up the IPO process. I mean, I think Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, this has been one of his signature initiatives. He's been very clear that he wants to float 5% of Aramco, put that money in his public investment fund, and they make more investments in the tech sector. I mean, he's looking to build a sovereign wealth fund that's on the same lines as ADIA in Abu Dhabi or Mubadala. So this is a key part of that whole process for him. I think they looked at the bond issuance in April. It was very successful, oversubscribed, and I think they have confidence they can do this. But again, the price environment is really challenging for them. So the question is, and that's why I say it's going to be very important what happens in September. What is Saudi Arabia going to do in terms of production policy? The last time we had a demand-driven price crash in 2008, OPEC collectively over the course of 12 months took 4 million barrels off the market. Are they going to do something similar? I think that's going to be very key in terms of what is the response mechanism going to be from Saudi Arabia, from the rest of OPEC to this softening price.
Once an IPO is done, right, if they get it and when they get it done, what happens to their urgency to defend any price?
I think that is the key question. And I think, for Mohammed bin Salman, it's not like he's really, I think, looking to continue to cut production. I think he's hoping to get to a point that they can use production policy as a bridge price, and then he potentially won't have to worry about it quite as much. But Saudi Arabia remains, wedded to a sort of prosperity for loyalty bargain. They have very high social spending. They've cut back on that somewhat. But you have a Saudi population that does have expectations about social benefits. So I don't think they're going to be able to say we don't care about price at all. But the need to defend a certain level to get an IPO off the ground will certainly not be there once they pull this off, if they pull this off.
Helima, I thought it was really interesting that you had mentioned the sovereign wealth fund's desire to diversify its investments into possibly technology, because if you think about all the dollars chasing after tech investments these days, especially with a second SoftBank fund, I mean, it's very fierce right now, and the time is probably of the essence at this point to have those dollars free and to be able to invest the money. So you're thinking of this as more broadly. It's not just about oil prices and what they might do in a couple of years. It's a much broader sort of play for you.
I mean, this is Mohammed bin Salman's whole vision, is that they could not continue to depend on oil revenue indefinitely. They look out for the future of oil and say we must have, a safety net. We must have some way of diversifying our income stream to keep the whole sort of Saudi enterprise going. So I think they see the diversification imperative, and I think they're just really trying to move this thing along faster than people had even thought 6 months ago. 6 months ago, we kind of thought that the IPO had been shelved. Now it's really back on the table, and I think it's really being driven by a crown prince that very much believes that they're basically on a burning platform, that they have to diversify this economy. They have a young population. 75% of the population is under the age of 30. They're very committed to trying to find a way to meet the aspirations of that population.
Finally, we talked a lot about supply just now, but on the demand side, how does China fit with global demand? What's happening on that front? And if they're not the most important marginal buyer at this point, who is?
I mean, this is the key story at this point. I mean, China has been the engine of all commodity demand growth. And so hence we really see oil and other commodities respond fiercely to trade war concerns. And so we are looking very, very closely to what happens with China. China went on a buying spree in the first half of this year, we think in part because they were concerned about Iran's sanction, about what was happening in Venezuela, because they were taking so many of those barrels. They've built up very big inventories. Right now, they can take a pause a bit in terms of their buying because of their inventory cushion. And that was really the key pillar that was kind of holding this market up, was strong Chinese buying. So with a softening China picture in terms of what they're purchasing, that is tough for the oil market right now.